All right. So we back for another video. Got the last section of Article 1. The first section, general provisions. All right, we're on the last one, relation to electronic signatures and Global and National Commerce Act. Right, so let's get it. All right, so relation to electronic signatures and Global and National Commerce Act. Okay, so what they're saying is, hey, this Uniform Commercial Code and its general provisions, and remember, Article 1 applies to the rest of the articles, right? So since this is the general article, generally when you're reading everything Uniform Commercial Code, you have to relate it to Electronic Signatures and Global and National Commerce Act. Okay, so let's read. So this article, what article? Article 1, right? Modifies, limits, and supersedes. Right, so this article changes around, it shortens, and comes above the Federal Electronic Signature and Global and National Commerce Act. And here's the title, so you go read that act. And it really was insightful to me. Like when I first read it, it made sense. It made sense how it does tie in. So that was very interesting too. And then it says, except that nothing in this article modifies, limits, or supersedes. Because remember up here, it said this article definitely modifies, limits, or supersedes the whole, 17001. I'm sorry, 7001. But then it says, hey, nothing in this Article 1 supersedes Section 7001C of that act or authorizes electronic delivery of any of the notices described in Section 7003B of this act. Right? So I think they say that because electronic delivery of any of the notices described in that section on that act and the Uniform Commercial Code, you can deliver electronically instruments and pieces of paper and securities, and you can electronically deliver that, right? So we're gonna go look at those two real quick. All right, so let's start with except that nothing in this article modifies, limits, or supersedes 7001C. Okay, so 7001C. So this is dealing with commerce and trade, Title 15, general rule of validity, IWC, consumer disclosures, right? So the Uniform Commercial Code, when it's dealing with consumers, it is not modified or changed this section of this whole act that it said it does modify. All right, so C has one. Okay, so it goes on for a little bit. All right, so I'm gonna read a little bit. All right, so consent to electronic records. Wasn't it just saying electronically? All right, so let's pay attention. So notwithstanding subsection A, if a statute, regulation, or other rule of law requires the information related to the transaction or transactions in or affecting interstate or foreign commerce be provided or made available to a consumer in writing, the use of electronic record to provide or make available, whichever is required, such information satisfies the requirement that section information be in writing if the consumer has affirmatively consented to such use and has not withdrawn such consent. The consumer, prior to consenting, is provided with a clear and conspicuous statement. 1. Inform the consumer of 1. Any right or option of the consumer to have the record provided or made available on paper. Right, because remember, electronically or on paper, right? So when you read the Uniform Commercial Code, it supersedes, modifies, or limits this entire act, but not with related to this section. Because it's saying, hey, you as a consumer, you can get something on paper form if you want. It don't have to be electric, right? Okay. Because this act, let's go back. So this act is electronic records and statutes, signatures, and commerce, right? So what I get from that is, hey, this act is dealing with signing electronic records, right? And they're saying, hey, this act was back in the old days. So Uniform Commercial Code is coming to give modern effect to, remember it said that in its provisions, like what this act is all about. See what I'm saying? So that's how you connect everything contextually, like what Congress is saying, right? So what it's saying is, hey, this article number 1 modifies, limits, and supersedes this electronic signature and Global and National Commerce Act, right? So read that. It's probably talking about everything being on paper. See what I'm saying? Well, it says electronic signature. All right. But it says some things are on paper. But section 7001C, you leave the same pretty much. Like, hey, we can get things on paper if we want. We don't have to get everything electronically. Right? And then it says, this act authorizes electronic delivery of any of the notices described in. Okay, so it does not supersede section 7001C, which is what we just read, of that act, or authorizes electronic delivery of any of the notices described in 7003B. So you can't authorize electronic of this additional exceptions. So the provision of section 701 of this title shall not apply to court orders or notices or other official court documents, including briefs, pleadings, and other writings required to be executed in connection with court proceedings. Any notice or the cancellation or termination of utility services, including water, heat, and power, default, acceleration, repossession, foreclosure, or eviction, or the right to cure under a credit agreement secured by or a rental agreement for a primary residence of an individual. Okay. Any document required to accompany any transportation or handling of hazardous material. Okay. Okay. So pretty much we can still have paper. Okay, and in the court, right? You can't electronically deliver things, or this is not authorizing things to be delivered to the courts electronically, right? Even though they can be, but it doesn't authorize electronic delivery, right, of any of those notices that we just read. Okay, all right.